Hey everyone, this is John Houston with CIOTalks, where we bring you some of the top thought leaders in the tech world. My guest today is Dale Denham. Dale is the CIO for international top 10 distributor Geiger and previously held the position of Senior Vice President of the Advertising Specialty Institute for 10 years. Dale, thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So Dale, where I want to start is when you're examining a particular business scenario that can be optimized with software, what process do you go through to determine whether to buy an off-the-shelf product or to build something custom?
Well, in general, we always look at the key outcomes and decide backwards from there. And if it looks like building something is going to cost more than buying, we have to justify the build internally. We definitely prefer to buy off the shelf, and we've recently had 3 major applications which we purchased off the shelf because they served as great frameworks and they met such a high percentage of our needs. We still had to configure and customize them, but they delivered so much more value than we could have built ourselves. On the other hand, there were things that we worked internally that while there are tools that could meet some of the needs, we would have ended up customizing more than 50% of that. So in general, we try to keep the rule, if you're going to need to customize more than 20%, you might as well build it rather than buy it. But if you can keep the customization under 20%, then you should buy it rather than build it.
Okay, so the first attribute you look at is how close it is, and after that it's really just a cost comparison to determine what the best option is.
I shouldn't make it sound just like a cost comparison because it isn't just about the cost of building it, it's also about the cost of operating it. And of course, in some cases, you want to have the ability to say, yes, we can fix that or we can improve that. And you can't do that if you have bought something off the shelf. You're dependent on your software partner. So depending on how integrated it is to your core business process, sometimes you really do have to build from scratch. But even when we build from scratch, we typically use frameworks. So we're not building everything from scratch.
Okay. So let's assume you do go the build route, that you can't find something that was within 80% of what you need, so you need to customize it. Once you make that decision, what variables determine if you develop the application in-house or outsource it to a company that specializes in custom software development?
That's a really important question that we focus on. When we do decide that we want to build something, the internal route is almost always preferred because you have internal knowledge that both you can build from, but also you build long-term where people can support those. On the other hand, sometimes you're working on a project that requires either great expertise in a specific area. For example, we did a product information manager implementation, and we'd never done one before. So working with someone outside to customize and configure that for us was much smarter. But we also built an order management and order follow-up system, and we looked at our internal resources and said, while we could figure that out, working with a partner right now makes more sense, both because they brought in different talents that we did not have, and also our resources could be better focused on other projects. So sometimes it boils down to how many projects do we have, and which ones can we work on internally and deliver more value, and which one can the partner bring some external value. And a lot of that has to do with user interface design and projects that your partners worked on before.
Okay, so if you do decide to go with a partner, how do you handle just maintenance? Is it they build it and then they ship it off to you and you handle it internally, or do you continue to work with them to maintain it over the life of the product, or how does that process work?
Each project is dependent on, the answer to that is dependent on each project. So okay. In many cases, the vendor is better off maintaining the code for us long term. In some cases, it's better to go ahead and bring it in-house and do the maintenance in-house. Having the access to the source code obviously is an important part of that. And we are primarily a PHP shop, and some things need to be developed in .NET. Mm-hmm. And although we have people who do .NET, rather than stretch them and take their focus off of what they're doing primarily, if we are working with someone who's built something for us in .NET, we like to have that firm build and maintain. And same thing if we need to develop something in Java. Although we have the capability to maintain it, we typically will rely on those firms.
Okay. Fair enough. And I want to pivot a little bit here and talk about something we talk about a lot in CIOTalks, which is that of innovation. And so all companies and departments struggle with encouraging innovation while still maintaining stability of the current systems. And I'm curious, what have you found to be successful in encouraging innovation and driving it while also making sure it doesn't break down everything else while you're trying to do that?
Yeah, that's always a tough balance and a tough question. You really have trouble innovating if you have any stability issues. So first and foremost, you have to have everything operating really well. We struggle constantly with the fact that we are keeping things up to date, and the people who are maintaining and improving the existing systems are also the ones that are supposed to innovate, because the people who have the best ability to innovate know the existing systems. Yes, you want to bring in some fresh blood who can say, well, let's think different, but you still need those people who really understand what's going on. So the most important thing is, in order to innovate, be stable first. If you try to do both at the same time, your innovation is likely to fail. That doesn't mean everything has to be perfect, but your email systems can't be going down. Your firewall can't be going down. You can't have problems that prevent people from trusting you. And once you have done the basics and you've got your team, and both that means IT, but more importantly the business side, trusting you, then you can deliver on the innovation, because people are free to think about what it is they really need and how things might work for them.
Okay. So comfort and stability first, and then innovation. And so let's say you have stability, that you have all your core systems functioning. At that point, is it just people feel freer to innovate because they don't have to worry about, putting out fires, or is there something in particular you do to sort of push the envelope and encourage them to come up with new products or solutions to problems?
At Geiger, and in the previous firms that I've worked with, our success has always been about getting in with the business people and talking to them. So even our help desk, we don't hide behind email, we don't hide behind the phone. We get out, we go visit, and we see what's going on. In lean manufacturing or lean continuous improvement terms, it's the Gemba, the walkabout. And we are constantly out there seeing what's happening with our users. And by observing them actually working on the products, we're able to find better ways to do things. And we do this all the way to our developer level. The developers sit and watch people use their products in real life situations, and then they go, oh, we could make that better. Oh, I could make a better product than this. But to kind of tie it back to the previous answer, if they are sitting there even spending 20% of their time putting out fires, they're not as effective. Right. They can kind of work on these things, but they don't feel the time where they can go, oh, I've got a 4-hour block where I can sit down and observe what's going on and come up with ideas. And to also go back into the lean terminology, we're very big at using lean at Geiger. We use the Hoshin planning method, and all business units have an X matrix and decide what their top priorities are. And then we build IT's priorities in alignment with them. Mm-hmm. So as they tell us they want to solve problem A, B, or C, we then work to solve those with them. And so because we're in alignment, we can innovate. When we try to innovate something we think is important, but the business unit does not, that doesn't usually work.
Interesting. So that's interesting to me. So how does IT have any say in this prioritization, or are you essentially just like, all right, here's what the business tells us is important, we're just going to take that and go 1, 2, 3 down the list, or is it a conversation where you say, hey, we can do this, but it'd be difficult or challenging, or this might be low-lying fruit? How does that conversation go?
IT is involved from the very beginning, and in fact, this year we are putting IT's planning first, but we then subordinate our plans to whatever the business says. So we are coming out to it. We start our planning in another 30 days as a business. IT's been planning for the last 30 days. And we come out and we say, here's what IT sees you need to be working on, from your e-commerce platforms to your order platforms to general internal efficiencies to disaster recovery. Here are the things that we must do from a keeping the lights on perspective that are going to consume resources. Here are the things we think you should be doing, because the business is looking to us to give them guidance. Right. But in many cases, the business has some issues that are just far enough outside of our vision that we're having to bring that in there, and then we work with them. And in many cases, they've never heard some of these before, so they're having to work them into their plans. But we're starting the process by saying, here's what we see. They're saying, okay, these pieces make sense and do align with what we need. But then we go back and we say, all right, now that they understand where we're coming from, We understand where they're coming from. We do ultimately deliver on what the business unit needs.
Okay, cool. That's helpful. Thank you. So I now want to shift again to something completely different, which is social media. And this especially the last 4 or 5 years, the social media presence for companies has gone from optional to required for many companies. What social media strategy do you have relating to both your customers and your employees?
Well, it varies. We have 2 different business models that we work with, an e-commerce business model and a sales partner business model. I'll focus on our primary business model, which is working with the sales partners. We encourage everybody in the entire organization to be very active on social media. We encourage all employees to have a professional LinkedIn profile. We encourage people to post on Glassdoor about their experience at Geiger. We advertise on social media, not just jobs, but different information about our company to reach our clients and remind them what kind of firm we are to work with. We're huge believers in the personal touch of social media. We are less excited as a brand for social media because it's very tough to connect as a brand with people unless you're Coca-Cola, and even then it's tough for them. We believe that social media is about people connecting with people. So we encourage our employees from entry-level people all the way to our CEO to be very active on social media as an individual and be open to industry connections. And most people want to be.
Okay. And have you experimented with any internal social media, so things like Yammer or something like that, where you're trying to build a community within the company itself?
We have, and what we found is that the LinkedIn and Facebook private groups work much better than an internal Yammer tool, and the reason why is because most of our employees are on Facebook or LinkedIn at some point during their day, and these notifications pop up, and it seems to get more engagement and more information. We've tried Yammer, and we've had success in small departments, but in fact what we found is our most successful collaboration tool is Skype.
Okay. So the last question I want to ask you today has to do with mobile. So both customers and employees are increasingly expecting, if not demanding, that both websites and applications, be not only available but optimized for mobile. So no pinching or zooming, it just looks good. However, this often can mean a severe redesign and occasionally even pruning back, in fact often pruning back functionality to make the mobile presence more aesthetically pleasing and functional. How do you decide when it's time to go mobile, and what things do you consider when designing a mobile version?
Right. Well, first and foremost, we have to define mobile, and this is a big debate that I have with people all the time. To me, mobile is a phone, and a tablet is not mobile.
Okay.
So when I talk about designing for mobile, I'm talking about designing for a phone. When I talk about designing for a tablet, which is considered mobile by most people, I think of that very much like I do a laptop. And we design everything we have been doing for the last 24 months starts with an iPad design. And if you break out mobile traffic, for the most part, it's happening on iPads and other tablets, but primarily iPads. For our business, that's not true for every business. For a business-to-business product like we are, that's where we focus is the tablets. But we watch Google Analytics. And when we see visits starting to increase from phones, then that's when we're going to start spending more money. Now, we are already spending money on a mobile design site for our e-commerce site that is more of a test, even though it's a 5-figure amount of money that we've spent. And as you point out, we pulled the features way back because we focused on what kind of things might people want to do from their mobile phone. And we will continue to develop mobile phone apps, websites. I'm not a big believer in apps for the most part, but websites where people can do things on their phones, but very limited features and functionality. The investment has to match the amount of traffic you're getting, and until you know what people will really do when they get to your mobile design site, you shouldn't spend too much. For most businesses, there are exceptions to that. If you're a business-to-consumer site, then you've got to pay more attention to a mobile phone. We're a business-to-business site, and the type of things we sell, most people are doing that type of work on their tablet or PC. Now that's going to change in the coming years, but for now we're spending a very small amount of our investment on a mobile phone and the larger on tablets and desktop.
Okay. So when you say designing not an app but for mobile web, is that just simply a responsive design, or is it a separate site that's purely for mobile?
Yeah, in the case of what we're investing in right now, it's a purely mobile site. It is not a responsive design site. And the reason why is that's much less expensive to build, and it gives you the flexibility to see what kind of patterns people have when they hit your mobile design site. Mm-hmm. We are going to be re-platforming in the next few years our entire e-commerce system. At that point is when we plan to do everything responsive based on what we learn from people using our mobile design site. Responsive is definitely the way to go, but it's a bigger investment, and it does have some overhead issues that have to be worked out.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Dale, I'd like to thank you for doing this interview and thank all of you for watching. Be sure to sign up in the upper right corner of the site to receive an email when new interviews are posted. Also, follow us at CIOTalks on Twitter to stay on top of all things CIOTalks related. And lastly, please submit recommendations for which tech leader you'd like to see interviewed next. Thanks again for watching. Thank you, Dale. And I look forward to bringing more great interviews in the future. Thanks.
Thank you.